And we're back with the show and back with the Fantasy Football Pay Dirt Podcast. It's Gerald coming right back at you here. But it wouldn't be a Fantasy Football Pay Dirt Podcast, but we wouldn't be talking fantasy football if it weren't for the fantasy football guru. You can hear all of his thoughts each week on our full episodes of the Fantasy Football Pay Dirt Podcast on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel, on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and over 30 different podcast outlets. And of course, you can talk to him on a personal level, get his thoughts, get his in-depth analysis, and also his opinions on waiver wire pickups. I think last-minute trades are out of the picture at this point in time, so lineup changes, waiver wires, plus also how you can prepare your team for the upcoming fantasy football playoffs, or how you can close out your season strong by going over to the Fantasy Football Pay Dirt Podcast Facebook group. You join up, and over 200 other fantasy football fans are there to interact with you, along with the guy who runs it all. His name is Tyler Baker. What's going on, my friend?
I'm doing well, buddy. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was a lot of food,
Yes.
a lot of eating, and then the real holiday begins in Black Friday, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Cool, man.
It was good. I'm thinking that this will probably be the best Black Friday for U.S. shoppers now out there in quite some time. So I think a lot of people were taking advantage of it, and just hoping everyone will have that translate into a happy and safe holiday out there for every one of our listeners and everyone out there as well. So,
yeah, that's cool. And because Alibaba had their big thing in China last week, and they had a really good shopping day too. So yeah, cool. It's gonna be some good Christmases out there.
my goodness, if Alibaba was over here in the way that Amazon, Walmart, Target was, I think my head would explode right now, because yes, they are the Amazon of of a great portion of the world out there. And just if and when they come here as a full-time entity, or I know they're trying to bleed into this market.
It's probably going to happen. Yeah.
I mean, they've got the money for it. So if they do, I'm telling you, oh my gosh. Choices.
It's funny how markets change.
Exactly. Just here, take my wallet, please.
Yeah.
Credit cards. There you go. There you go.
Yeah. I saw that Subway has hopped into the food delivery service now. So,
everybody's doing it. And that's another thing. Ask everybody. And that's another thing. If right now, through the holidays, Amazon, Target, Walmart, read them very carefully, because you may be able to order over the phone, over your computer, and you can avoid any shipping charges with a lot of what they're putting out there over the course of the holiday season. So they're all waiving their fees. You don't need to go Prime membership or anything like that. So that's really cool for everyone out there to spend more money.
Well, they're making it very, very easy to spend more money. Even Macy's had an app where you could check yourself out and pay yourself and just walk out of the store, because they didn't want the crowds to turn people away. So any way that they can find to sell you products, they're just getting more and more innovative.
They are, but they still got to have servers that that's able to handle that type of output. I spoke of Walmart.com that crashed for me on Thursday.
Yes.
I know also two other sites that we were using as well to buy stuff. They also crashed. So that part of it, that end of it, still has to get together. They get their act together on some certain extent, especially midline and smaller entities, but even larger entities still have those issues with traffic. But once they get that situated out and make it a clean, like you see in the commercials, just you walk in, or you get a hand delivered to your car, or everything like that, all nice and funky, because in real life it still doesn't work like that yet. But when it does, I'll tell you what, it's going to be an awesome thing for all of us shoppers out there.
Yeah, well, bridging real life and fantasy, that's kind of what we do on the Fantasy Football Pay Dirt Podcast on the PCC. I mean, that's kind of what we do. We try to make that bridge. And there was some whatever games today, but there were some good ones too.
Oh, this is a fantasy football podcast? I thought this was a fantasy football shopping podcast. I'm just kidding out there, everyone. It was a great weekend in the NFL as far as a lot of games that did produce some big time running and some historic passing as well. So it was actually a pretty good weekend for fantasy football owners out there. But I'm going to start focusing first on what you had mentioned real briefly before we came on the air in the humongously large arena known as the StubHub Center in Los Angeles. You know, all kidding aside, they've got a great team down there, and I hope they
Yes.
I heard on the radio today during the course of the game that, you know, season tickets for 2018 were sold out at the StubHub Center. And I said, well, and I was like to myself, huh, all 10 of them? That's great.
Yeah.
Great job. But anyways, and they're all going to the opposite team.
All to the opposite team. Yeah,
Exactly.
in fact, I was commenting to a family member tonight that I've been to StubHub to watch the Chargers play, and it's a really really good place to watch a football game. It's super small. It's a soccer stadium. What does it seat, like 32,000 or 33,000
In
or
that
something like
range, yeah,
that?
it's very intimate. And that's the
In
problem in the NFL. You can't have an intimate stadium.
Yeah, but nobody in LA wants the Chargers there. And it's really a shame because they're a really good football team. Like they on both sides of the ball, they're playing really well. They are now 8-3. So in the AFC, you have the divisions aren't quite locked up yet, but we're getting there. And then the Chargers are going to get one of those playoff spots. So the other playoff spot is going to be probably down to the wire because we all know the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West, but the Chargers are right there at 8-3. They're a really good team. Today, Phillip Rivers, oh my gosh, the guy had one incomplete pass. Like, that is absolutely incredible. He was 28 for 29.
It is the highest percentage all time for a game for anyone over 20 pass completions.
Oh, incredible. Incredible. 259 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then you have Melvin Gordon. He only scored a couple touchdowns today. Now, note about Melvin Gordon, he has an MCL injury. They're not saying if it's a sprain or a tear. It's pretty much the same thing. But we don't know what that timeline is going to be. It looks like he's going to miss at least one game. They almost held him out of this game because the Arizona Cardinals really aren't scaring anybody. He actually petitioned the coaching staff to let him play, and maybe they're regretting it now. So even if it's just missing 1 week, I would expect Austin Eckler, his primary backup, to get quite a bit of work, at least for the rest of the season, because they're going to want Melvin Gordon. They're going to want him healthy for a deep playoff run this year.
Because they are prepared for it. I think everybody out there, including the 10 fans that are out there that are support the Los Angeles Chargers, they need to go ahead and prepare themselves for the playoffs because it is definitely shaping up like that. They're 8-3. They're they're third in the AFC, right around there. They've got a very strong outlook to close out the season. Tell you what, they are looking good. To me, they remind me so much, and the analogies are there and the parallels are there of the NBA with the Clippers. They came up from San Diego. They were moved up here to LA. They were put in the Los Angeles Sports Arena, which if you've been to the Los Angeles Sports Arena, it's not it wasn't the most pleasant place to play or play, the arena as it was. And the crowds, reflected that. It wasn't very highly attended. The team didn't do well for a long period of time, but you know what? Things are looking great for them. They're one of the top teams right now in the NBA, and so is the Chargers when it comes to the NFL. So anybody out there who has Austin Eckler, or also if Melvin Gordon is going to be out an extended period of time, and Phillip Rivers is so efficient right now, you may want to even focus and double down more on the receivers that they have. There's like 3 or 4 that you can use as a viable fantasy option in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it is really difficult gauging the receivers there. They like to throw to Mike Williams around the end zone.
Tyrell Williams?
Tyrell Williams, but unfortunately, he can kind of disappear sometimes.
You're right.
Keenan Allen is the steady guy there. And then Travis Benjamin is there. He's kind of a big play guy. He's not going to get a lot of targets. It is going to be difficult. Um, Antonio Gates was looking like a much younger version of himself last week. I didn't see the game this week, so I don't know how he looked. I know that they didn't use him a lot, only one target, but he caught it for 18 yards. So if they do end up passing more, it's going to be a little difficult nailing down who is going to be the recipient of that. But that's really part of why Philip Rivers is so good, because he has a lot of weapons to use, and it's going to be very game plan specific. The only one that you can count on is going to be Keenan Allen. You're going to count on Austin Eckler, whether Melvin Gordon plays or not. And then, Mike Williams is kind of one of those dart throws that he might not get a lot of targets, but today he had 2 touchdowns. You got to love that.
Travis Benjamin, even.
Yeah, Travis Benjamin. 3 targets, caught all 3 of them for 47 yards. So I'm not sure who they play next week. Let me look that up real quick. So being without Melvin Gordon,
I also want to touch on that. Not only is Austin Eckler going to be your primary ball carrier, but he is still a humongous part of that pass offense. So. He got 11 targets today, 10 receptions. That's a lot of production there on both ends, which could be very enticing for fantasy football owners.
Yes. Next week on Monday night, they go into Pittsburgh. That's going to be a tough one. But both of these offenses can put up numbers. Both of these defenses can play well. That's going to be an interesting game on Monday night next week. But yeah, don't count on Melvin Gordon playing. Austin Eckler should be owned in every league. But if he's not, you definitely want to pick him up on waivers this week.
Couple more I want to talk about when it comes to the running back position, because this was a good day for running backs. I know you and I all season have lamented on the, disappointing running back position as far as the consistency, not only at a top level, but an overall level in regards to the number of individuals out there that are consistently able to provide their team with rushing yards. But today we've got a lot of great ball carrying out there as far as a lot of good running yards. I think I'm going to start off with what we got in Carolina, because yes, they did lose the game, but Christian McCaffrey did provide a key part of their team's offense from both a rushing and receiving. And if you have him on your team tonight, this week, you'll be very happy that you did.
Yeah, if you have Christian McCaffrey, I'm pretty certain you're in the playoff run, in the hunt for a playoff spot in your fantasy league. But this is an example of an offense forming a game plan around one player. Now, I had questions about him, especially last season as an in-between the tackles player. He wasn't very good in between the tackles last year. He wasn't strong enough, and for all of his speed and quickness, he really lacked strength in his rookie year. He did work out in the offseason, and he's showing this year with better acceleration and more strength that he's much more capable as an in-between the tackles runner. He's only gotten better in the passing game today. 11 targets, 11 receptions for 112 yards and a touchdown. Oh, and he had 17 rushes for 125 yards and a touchdown on the ground. This offense is really featuring Christian McCaffrey, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So
I will advise, though, he is a fumbler of the football. So if you take him, if you have him on your team and you start him, be aware that there might be 1 or 2 fumbles per game when it comes to Christian McCaffrey, even with all that production.
Yeah, 1 or 2 fumbles per game is a lot. But you did see him fumble 3 times today, and you know what? They kept featuring in the ball. When you get really nervous is when a player fumbles and he sees the bench for a series or two. That's not happening with Christian McCaffrey. CJ Anderson, if he's even seen the field this year, I don't know about it. He's nowhere on the stat sheets. So it is Christian McCaffrey, and that's it. So looking forward to next season, he is going to be a top running back next year. I mean, it's going to be Saquon Barkley, and it's probably going to be Christian McCaffrey number 2.
Speaking of Saquon Barkley, he also produced very well today. You think he is going to be the number 1 running back in the NFL for fantasy football owners next year that people are going to be targeting on? I want you able to, I know we did earlier in the season, but I want to be for you to be able to interpret why that is, because there are running backs. We've talked about Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler. We've talked about so many other running backs that are out there over the course of the season. Christian McCaffrey just now. Why is Saquon Barkley proving to be so special, and why do you think he will already be targeted by fantasy football owners for next year's draft as the number 1 option?
Well, I think he's the best running back in the NFL, and you don't have to watch a whole lot of his game film to see that. He's so fast, he's so powerful, he is elusive, he can finish runs as good as anybody, and this team, in this year's draft, they could have gone in different directions, but they went with Saquon Barkley, and you can understand why, because now they have an absolute blue chip player for really cheap that they can start building a franchise around. This team has seen Barkley be everything that they wanted him to be. I think going into the draft that they're going to, yes, they need a quarterback, but they also need help on that offensive line. The more that they build up that offensive line, the better the running game's going to be. And this offense, especially if they can get a better quarterback, has so many weapons in the passing game that this could be a very, very well-balanced offense. And teams are not going to be able to stack the box against Saquon Barkley when you have Odell Beckham and Sterling Shepard. And I don't know what happened to Evan Ingram. I think he just fell off a cliff, because today it was Rhett Ellison that was getting all the tight end work. But it's as far as why already I'm considering Saquon Barkley as the number 1 running back next year. It's a combination of things. One, it's the raw talent. I don't think there's a more physically talented running back in the NFL than Saquon Barkley. And I've watched a lot of Le'Veon Bell film. I don't think that Le'Veon Bell is better than Saquon Barkley. He's certainly more refined in the passing game, and Le'Veon Bell has a very unique running style that not other other running backs just can't mimic. But for Barkley, it's a combination of that physical ability, and then also being a second-year player in New York. They know what they have in him, and I think that New York is really going to support Saquon Barkley, and he's going to be even more involved in the game plan next year. Now, that's a lot of speculation, but they know what they have in him, and he has put the team on his back. And while they're not winning a lot of games, he sure is showing the coaching staff, the front office, and the fans in New York who the best player on that team is. Because you don't see Saquon Barkley getting into fights with kicking nets.
No, that you don't.
You don't have to pat Saquon Barkley's ego on the sidelines after every series that doesn't go your way. I think fans in New York know who the best player on that team is.
And to someone who knows a certain Giants fan who's actually appeared on this show, and Chris Ardieri, and shout out to him of Inside Sports, and check out their great show each and every week when they come on the air. I will ask you this. Do you think Eli Manning, I don't want to say he's really had an improvement over the past few weeks when we considered him dead, buried.
Yeah.
He has a little bit.
But only because he's been so egregiously awful. Like, he's not as bad. So, I mean, Giants fans will take any improvement, but there have been flashes of like, oh yeah, that is Eli Manning. He can do some things.
But do you think it's enough things that will be going forward for another season as a New York Giant, or do you think they need to move into a different direction to maximize all those offensive weapons that they have in Beckham Jr. and obviously Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, the writing is on the wall. I don't know the franchise well enough to speculate as to how they're going to try to fill that void at quarterback, but it was a need this past year. They just were not able to address it in a way that they could get rid of Eli. But I do think that that's going to be a very high priority going into this next draft. Is they're going to have to find a better answer at quarterback than Eli Manning.
Another running back who did well today is in New England. One of the revolving door, as far as it's concerned, has now revolved into Sonny Michel. Again, proving that he could be, in the long term, one of the best options, if not the best option in New England, with over 130 yards this weekend and a touchdown. Your thoughts on the revolving door in New England? Is it finally going to stop and finally going to settle in with far as long as he stays healthy, Sonny Michel being the best option going forward for New England?
Yeah, Belichick is very good about developing game plans and finding the personnel on his team to best attack an opponent. I think Sonny Michel is the best running back on that team. Now, Rex Burkhead, I believe he's going to be activated from IR this week. I don't know if he necessarily plays this week. It depends, of course, on what kind of shape he's in, but he is going to be coming back, and you will see packages and plays with Rex Burkhead. It could even mean when they get down on the goal line that Michelle and White will come off the field and you'll see some Burkhead. So that's a little bit concerning if you're a Sonny Michel owner. But for the first time in a long time, there's a running back in New England that you feel comfortable playing. And it just hasn't been that way. But they put a lot of draft capital in Sonny Michel, and the rookie has shown that he was worth it. And so I would feel comfortable playing him, but just know with Burkhead coming back, it's going to muddy the waters a little bit, but not to the point I think where you're going to want to bench Sony Michel. And he's one of those few running backs out there that you can kind of depend on from week to week. Another one that popped up just a couple weeks ago in Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb carried the ball 28 times today. I mean, that is workhorse, good numbers. Now, the game script certainly helped that. But just the fact that any running back is getting 28 carries is very, very encouraging in today's NFL. He also added a couple catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. So he had 2 touchdowns today. So Nick Chubb is another one that if you were fortunate enough to get him off of the waiver wire, you're going to feel comfortable about playing him every single week. And then another guy that kind of popped on the scene there in Baltimore, Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards.
Let me skip. Okay, here we go. Gus Edwards. Now, do keep in mind that Alex Collins was out for this game with injury. So, and it's Lamar Jackson, and he is still kind of finding his way in the NFL. He did pass a little bit more in this game, but Gus Edwards, 23 carries, 118 yards. So it looks like they want to go to him now. There's a lot of questions around this offense. What happens when Collins comes back? I don't think he eats into Edwards. I think Edwards is the main guy there. And they still have Ty Montgomery, who they brought on just about a month ago. So it could be that they start getting him more involved. And then what happens when Joe Flacco's healthy? Do you take Lamar Jackson out? I don't know. He's won 2 games for him in a row. Now, granted, today they beat Oakland, and that's nothing you really want to brag too much about. But last year last week they beat a divisional opponent in the Cincinnati Bengals. So on a 2-game winning streak, do you even put Flacco back in? And if he comes in, what happens with Gus Edwards? Yeah, so there's a bit of a question mark there, even though we're seeing a running back that is getting the bulk of the work. This offense is still a little bit in flux. So not too sure about what that outlook is because it could change. But if you picked up Gus Edwards and you do have a need at your running back 2 or flex position, he's certainly a viable option.
You dirty dog. You took away my, as far as Nick Chubb, my next in line question for you in regards to what we are going to talk about. But you know what? I'll let it slip for just this one time. But yes,
Well,
you
it's
called it. You actually called it some time ago before even there was a trade involved that cleared the way, that gave him the starting spot when he was only getting 1 or 2 touches a game. You were actually calling about his potential, and I just want to compliment you that it looks like it's paying off and paying off in spades.
Well, now that's another guy next year that is going to require probably a second round draft pick. And Nick Chubb could even go in the first round, depending on how he plays out the season. And Hugh Jackson is gone, and now Cleveland's offense is actually doing things. Baker Mayfield, everybody looks better. Everybody loves Hugh Jackson, but he was stifling that offense, and they actually Hugh Jackson is now coaching with the Bengals, so he got to see firsthand on the field how much better the team can be when you just take the reins off of some of these guys. Another running back situation in Denver where they have a couple rookies there, and based on what I saw today, Philip Lindsay is far and above the better back to Royce Freeman. So I did get that one a little bit wrong when Lindsay was really coming on at the beginning of the year. I said, hey, hold your horses. I think it's still Freeman's backfield, but there will be some of somewhat of a timeshare there. It seems like it really has flipped towards Philip Lindsay and gotten away from Royce Freeman.
He looks like a very solid choice. I actually have him on one of my teams. I picked him up, and I thought he would be a very solid output. I didn't know he would be getting to be approaching this level. I didn't know he would be approaching this level. He's a very solid option for fantasy football owners out there. Receiving wise, he doesn't seem like he's going to help you much, but as far as a running option, at least for the long term, he is going to be someone that I think a lot of fantasy football owners need to keep an eye on for next year as a very solid running back option. Don't worry, my friend. It'll sound as if you never left us at all. You there? You there, my friend? Tyler, are you there? Tyler, you there? Tyler, you there? Tyler, you there? I can see you, but I cannot hear you. Something must be unplugged. Josh does this to me all the time, drives me nuts. I can't hear you. Let me see if I can get a new link and I'll send it to you again real quick.